add the flick to a list. We're old pros at this now. We've done this a million times. Piece of cake. But this time, it's going to be the same list every time. We're not going to create a whole new UL for each flick. So I need that list to exist. So let's add it to the page. So back in index.html, I'm again going to put it in this grid structure. And again, I just want it to take up the middle 8. So after this div ends way down here, but before my script tag, I'll make another one. Remember to close these. And inside there, I'll make a UL with an ID of flick-list. Nothing in it yet. Just another 8-cell or 8-unit cell inside our grid. So we could again be cool, and instead of saying, instead of specifying the selector inside init, we could pass it in as an argument. Now then we have to remember which order the arguments are in. So one pattern you'll see pretty often is that a function just takes a single object as its argument. That way people can put them in any order and just specify a key, and that's how we know which one it is. So I'll just make a single argument here called selectors. And the idea is I'll say selectors dot form selector. So when I call init, instead of just passing in the string, I'll pass in an object with a key form selector with that value. And then I'll pass in another one to grab the list from the page. So that has an ID of flick list. So I'll say list selector ID flick list. And in this case, I don't want to specify that it's an unordered list. If we change it to a description list later or something, or decide it's an ordered list, whatever, doesn't matter. It's the ID that matters. And again, I'll put my trailing comma. So then if we want to grab that up inside init, we have the selector as selectors dot list selector. Now why didn't I just make that a second argument to the function? Because down here where we call it, you can see what these strings actually mean. This one's the form selector, this one's the list selector. So it just makes it a little clearer what we're trying to do here. So since we're going to be appending these to the same list every time, I don't want to have to document query selector this thing every single time. I'll just store it as another property on my object. So this dot list equals document dot query selector. And the selector is that selector's object we passed in dot list selector. All right, because list selector is the key inside that object containing the selector I want to use. Does that work? Let's say app.list. Yep, there it is. App.list is a thing. And we want to add this flick to it, right? Piece of cake. But right off the get-go this time, right off the bat. We'll do it in a separate function. Just a couple more minutes. So I'll add a function called render list item. Why not? Render list item. And again, we could do this, or the shorthand. Just get rid of the colon function. Same thing, but don't forget your comma, because this is just another property of this object. And I want to be able to just pass in the flick. So I'll make this receive an argument, flick. I'll create the element using create element. So const item equals document dot create element. What kind of element? An li. And the text content of that item is the flick name, specifically, flick.name. Now make sure we return this, right? Because now it just lives in the ether. But this thing's only responsible for creating it. It doesn't know where to add it. It's just making the thing and giving it back to us. So back in handle submit, instead of console logging, we want to call render list item and append that. So we could say const list item equals this dot render list item, right? This is bound to the right thing now, the current object. Pass in this flick right here, the one we just made from the form data. Now we already have the list. We don't have to query selector to get it, right? It's saved as this.list. And that's the thing we're appending to, right? So this.list.append child list item. Not too bad. Basically what we did in the last app. Does it work? The Rock. Armageddon. Close enough. Yeah. Yep. And I'm getting ready to push all this. Now that I know it works, it is safe to slavishly copy this. I'm going to go ahead and commit this real quick. What's different in this commit? This commit will add flicks to an unordered list. Hooray. Okay. So now this is pushed, so you can go up to my GitHub and then have a look at it, because I want to go ahead and tell everybody what the homework is.